Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Investing Explained. Here's today's question. Let's talk about your transition to commercial from residential. Why did you want to make that transition?
Really, it wasn't something I planned on or really, had this epiphany like, oh, I need to do commercial. Like I said, I was kind of trying to figure out where I could buy more rentals, went down to Florida, found some decent areas. And then on the MLS, I saw a really cheap property pop up. So, this is, when most houses are 200,000 at least, I saw a property pop up for 110. Like, oh man, that's cheap. I saw it's commercial. I'm like, oh, I don't really want commercial. Well, I'll just check it out and see. So I looked it up. It's like 3,000 square feet, a furniture restoration building. And I just kept looking at it. I'm like, man, this thing is so cheap compared to houses. It doesn't look like it's in horrible shape. It's occupied right now. I'm going to go look at it. So I went and looked at it, kind of started learning how market rents worked with commercial properties, looked at similar properties for rent. I'm like, this thing should rent for $1,500 on the worst day of the year, in a blizzard when nobody can come out and look at it. So I made an offer on it and full price offer that same day. And I didn't hear anything for like 2 days. And I called the commercial agent. I'm like, hey, did you guys see my offer? He's like, oh yeah, we got it. We'll get back to you soon. It's full price with no inspection. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. Like, oh, okay, let me look at it right now today. They got back to me, accepted it. I learned that, oh man, commercial agents they're great, but they're totally different than residential agents. And we ended up renting that property back to the furniture restoration place for $1,500 a month. He's still there 3 years later. I think we had to replace the heat pump in the furnace and the roof, but that was covered by insurance. And that's all we've done that whole time. And actually, we refinanced that property and appraised for $250,000 this year. So took $65,000 out, still cash flows, and just been amazing. And once I bought that property, I just like, oh man, commercial's great. Started looking at different deals, and we bought anything from a small 800 square foot shop to the 68,000 square foot strip mall where my office is right now, where I'm at right now. And just ability to add value is just massive in commercial because you can add leases, you can add income, and it's really easy to figure out what it's worth based on cap rates after you do that. And then the fact that it cash flows because owner occupants can push prices up and pay more on a single family home than an investor would because they don't care what it's going to rent for. They care, what they can buy compared to other properties in the area they want to buy in. Whereas commercial, there's no real emotional owner occupants buying that building. It's investors who want to make money. Now, there's some that are overpriced still, but in my experience, you can get much better cash flow on commercial if you're patient and really look for those deals.
And so when you say commercial, you mentioned a couple examples there about renting to businesses, but so when you say commercial, you mean actually business type properties, right? Because in apartment investing or multifamily investing, anything up to 4 units is residential. Anything above that is considered commercial. So I'm assuming you mean more on the business side of things, right? Not multifamily commercial.
Right. I mean commercial. So I know everyone's like, oh, commercial investing. It's kind of like, the banks have their commercial lending department where you get loans. And that's why people say, a 40 unit apartment building or commercial. I don't consider that commercial. I think it's confusing. I think it's an apartment building. It's residential. So no, when I say commercial, I mean straight businesses, industrial, retail, office space, warehouse, not things that people are living in. So, I have one mixed use property that is 3 residential units and 1 commercial. So I still consider that commercial. And the banks do too, because there's a commercial unit in there. In fact, that can make it kind of tricky to finance and appraise because of that. But yeah, I mean, straight commercial, not multifamily. Because in my market too, I looked at multifamily and they were more expensive even than the commercial stuff. So one thing about commercial is you'll find there's less competition there. I found there's so many less investors who are willing to jump into it because it's complicated, because it's so different than single family or even multifamily residential properties.
That's all for this episode of Real Estate Investing Explained. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get even more free content.